Hi everyone, welcome to the House Church video. For this up week, we are, I'm guessing, about halfway through the Sermon on the Mount. And last week we looked at the section where Jesus is teaching about marriage and divorce. Your question, I suspect, about this text is the same as mine was as I started to study it. And man, did I study it. I actually can't remember a sermon that I've put more reading and thought and study into, just because it seems like a really significant text. Jesus saying, you should not get divorced ever except for this one specific reason. And of course, we're like, oh, okay, well, that seems really, really clear. But yet at the same time, it doesn't seem to be easy to process as the Jesus way. Like Jesus often has a real understanding of the gray areas of life, and he speaks so brilliantly to them. This seems so black and white. Are we understanding him correctly? Maybe we are. Maybe this teaching actually reflects his greater insight. And so he says it's actually not gray. It is black and white. Only in these circumstances can you be divorced. Or maybe we're missing something. So my question is the same as yours. Is this text seem to mean what it means at face value, or is there more here? My light bulb moment came when I realized that most people, when they come to this text, they have a really strong idea of what they want to find there. And I did too. Maybe you do as well. So maybe you know somebody who is stuck in a miserable situation in a marriage, physically abusive, sexually messed up. But because the other spouse hasn't cheated on them, they're stuck according to the Bible, and they've got Christians saying, sorry, it's too bad you've got these bruises on you, but he has actually never cheated on you. Or it's too bad she spent all your money and does over and over and is frigid and sexually unresponsive. You're actually stuck because she hasn't cheated on you. And we would love, because we care for that person, to feel like we had Jesus's backing and say, you know what, your marriage actually ended a long time ago. Marriage is more than a piece of paper, and it's okay for you to move on. We would like to be able to say that if we felt like we could. Then some of us have other situations where it's like this Christian couple just isn't even trying. They gave up way too soon. And we want to say to them, no, look at this teaching. Marriage is serious business. And if he's lazy, that's not a reason for you to go. Or if she's got a temper, that's not a reason for you to just pack it in. Marriage is hard, but it can be beautiful. You need to stick with it. Look at this teaching of Jesus who says you have to stick with it. Or maybe we are stuck in a marriage ourselves for decades and it absolutely sucks, but we've stayed in it because we think we're being faithful. And then somebody comes along with a different understanding of this and says, actually, you didn't have to do that. And we get really angry and we want to actually defend the traditional reading of this text, saying, no, we're going to stay here. You have to stay in this marriage, even though it's absolutely terrible, because I did. And I don't know what to do if I look at the last 30 years going, I mean, I didn't actually have to do that. Or maybe you're in a situation where somebody's thinking about leaving and you're not necessarily trying to win them back. You're just trying to win the argument, and you're using the Bible to say, no, look, you have to stay, you have to stay. So all of us bring that and more to these texts, and we want to see in it, most likely, what we want to see ahead of time and not let it speak to us. My light bulb moment in all that mess came when I realized I just want to see the heart of God in it, actually. What if I just wanted to see what was really there? Well, then I'm going to treat it like I treat the rest of the Bible. I'm not going to look for a proof text. A proof text is what people use when they take one chunk of scripture and say, see, look, I win. And they use a proof text of scripture to make a power play. Whether that power play is, look, now I can go, or the power play is, no, now you have to stay. Either way, it's a power play. But if you look at the whole narrative of Scripture, and you look at the broader ideas of what it means to be made in the image of God, and what a covenant is, and what the marriage covenant speaks about and helps illuminate about the big covenant God makes with us, if you're looking at principles of justice and mercy and sacrifice, all these things inform how we deal with marriage. If you get away from the proof text and you look at the entire narrative of Scripture, you find there's enough complexity and nuance in the teaching in Scripture, I think, to deal with all the complexities and nuances the difficulties and joys of marriage. That was my light bulb moment. Go bigger than the paragraph we read. And don't have an agenda when you come to it. My conviction is that by the time you're asking questions like, should he stay or should he go because this really stinks, it's already at the point of tragedy, right? And so my conviction isn't to try to figure out how to use a text that addresses something that's already in a real difficult place. The Christian way forward is to be a community that helps people not get to that place in the first place. And we need to be that for each other. I'm encouraged by our house churches, in my mind anyway, increasingly becoming multi-generational. So you've got people that have been married for 30 or 40 years speaking into the lives of those who've been married 5 or 6 years. That's huge. And by speaking into their lives, I don't necessarily mean sharing their wisdom. I mean just like showing them it's actually possible to get there. Sometimes that is enough of an encouragement for people. Let's be a community that doesn't have to rely on these teachings that are extreme because they address extreme situations. Let's be a community where people can say, we're having trouble right now. Her anger, it's probably not the best way to go about it, actually. It's better for her to say, my anger is destroying this thing, and him to say, my lust is really driving a wedge between us. We can't seem to agree on things. We're disagreeing about where to raise the kids. Do we put them here? Do we put them there? How often do we come to church? Do we do host church? How much money do we spend on this thing or the other thing? Like, start to actually talk about this stuff, and the people around the room speak into it, and it gets way better. You need that because marriage takes sacrifice, and you always feeling like you're sacrificing more than the other person, right? You need that community around you to say, actually, you know what, 25-year-old guy, you actually don't have it too bad. You feel like you do, but it's pretty good. She's actually out-sacrificing you. You need to grow up. You need that community around you to say to her, you know what, that actually is a reasonable expectation he has for you, and that if you give into that, if you live for that, then it'll go better for your marriage. But we can't sort it out on ourselves. We need other voices to help us navigate. So, in your house church now, even though it's up week, talk side. Talk about your marriage, how you're doing. What was your last fight? Why are you resenting each other? What's got you excited? Marriage is a picture of heaven, but when it goes sideways, it can be a picture of hell. And of course, we know what Jesus' teachings are supposed to take us to. So dive into that. Don't feel sheepish, even though it's an up week, because what better witness to a watching world for the Christian community to have than strong and transparent marriages being built together in community. Enjoy and be courageous and help each other. Grace and peace, everyone.